Another interesting view is the Find and Run view. After selecting it, a screen appears. The screen gives us a view adapted for use in touchscreen devices. It presents categories of programs found in the Start menu in the form of various icons. That way we can run programs. We can also search for applications. We can search for both programs and catalogs. At the top, we have a Favorite Applications bar. You can remove programs from there by clicking the minus sign beside the icon, or add applications by clicking the star next to the applications icon. That way, we can optimize our desktop for convenience. And thanks to that, make use of the system easier. Personally, I prefer the desktop type interface, where the desktop icons are grouped into containers. Nothing stands in the way of adding another element to the interface. For example, a catalog view. That allows us to configure the desktop to present views of several directories at the same time. Now we can view the desktop directory and home directory on our desktop. We can place more elements like that on the desktop. In addition to catalog views, we can use, for instance, sticky notes that are built into the system. It's a very convenient solution that lets us store different types of messages. The software solutions that we call widgets are professionally called plasmoids. KDE has a wide set of those. We can set practically anything we want to the desktop, from file views through comic strips automatically loaded from the internet, to system performance monitoring tools, sticky notes, directory views, and other things like that. Our creativity is almost unlimited here, so it's worth it to spend a little time on experiments and choose the set of components that would suit us best. Personally, I'm not a fan of cluttered desktops, so in my daily work I use folder views, sticky notes to leave notes for later, and for example, a weather forecast widget that shows the weather for the next few days, just to add some diversity to my desktop. You should realize that the more elements we put on our desktop, the more resources our system will need to work properly. Unfortunately, performance has to take a hit because each element takes up some internal memory. Most of them are transparent and contain other elements that use up system resources as well. Another interesting feature of the KDE is the element layout mechanism. If you drag a window to the top or to the side edge, you'll notice that tinted, translucent frames appear, which allow you to automatically resize the window into one of the shady screen elements. It's very useful when we want to perform an action in 2 or more windows. They can be arranged appropriately and we'll get an automatic preview of evenly arranged windows. It's very useful for more advanced actions, because you can keep track of actions performed by a program, such as event logging, and on the other hand, perform operations in that program. Nothing will overlap with the windows that we want to view. Another very interesting option is something that the Windows operating system is lacking. When we have 2 overlapping windows and one on top is active, the cursor will allow us to scroll through the contents of the window that is underneath. All we have to do is move the mouse cursor over it. It's very useful in a situation when, for instance, we have an internet browser open in one window, in which we have some instructions we want to go through, some job or an open document we want to view, and execute the tasks described in it in another window. At this point, we need to open the application, which is still active. We continue to work in it, and we only need to move the cursor onto the browser's window and use the mouse wheel to scroll the contents displayed there. For example, scroll our instructions list by a few lines. It's a functionality that I wildly miss when I'm using Windows. It's very useful, and it seems it's easy to become dependent upon it. We just begin to miss it in other systems. I think you can see that the environment is very comfortable. It allows you to use different options, such as resizing icons, adjusting almost all elements just like in Windows. Not everyone likes the sounds in this system environment. To change them, enter the system settings, by default in Favorites. It's something like the control panel, but the options here only apply to the current user. A user can set all options associated with the operation of the system, but only for him or her. Notification sounds are put in a quite counterintuitive place. You just have to get used to the fact that in Linux system, sounds options are located there. In Windows, they're located in Sound, which I think is more intuitive. To disable sounds globally, we have to go to the player and choose Mute in the System Sounds Playback options. Mute will apply only to system notifications. Selecting this option does not mean that the system will not play sounds at all. The system will play back sound, with the exception of system sounds. I have not found an option that would allow to mute the sounds of all applications. I also don't know how to turn off all sounds, but leave them on for a specific application. Sorry, you'll have to click through the long list of applications on your system. You'll have to check if an application does not have a play icon, because that means that the application has sounds. To turn off the sounds in your applications, you have to laboriously click through all the applications and disable that option. This is not very convenient, so I prefer to turn off sound globally, especially because personally I belong to people who do not like the sounds at all. However, it's a matter of taste, and you can set these options according to yours. In this mode, you can set other application options, such as a cursor appearance on the program startup, and for how long the application should appear in the tray bar. There are other special options I should name, like the desktop effects. If your system allows it, most of today's computers allow this, we can set up a number of interesting visual effects. From the user's perspective, the option associated with input devices is very important. By default, KDE opens folders and files with just one click. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Formally, it should work in such a way that when you hover over it and click the directory, you'll immediately go to it. That doesn't always have to be comfortable. In particular, we must remember that if you want to select folders or files, you must click on the plus sign, and not on the directories. This way, we can select any number of files. Very often, we can move the mouse and hit the directory accidentally, which will open it immediately. It's not too comfortable. So, in the options, we can change the settings to open on double click, and to select on a single click. It's a matter of choice. A novice user may have some difficulties finding it, so we show the basic options here. Single click to open a file can be tricky. For example, a person unfamiliar with this mechanism reflexively clicked once on a large text file that immediately started being loaded into the text editor. It normally takes some time. Sometimes it can generate problems, especially if the file was not a typical text file, but a configuration file without the appropriate extension. So, beginners should disable this option. So, now we've seen how KDE looks. It's a friendly environment. I really like it, and I like the way it works. It's being constantly developed. It has a very large set of dedicated software that integrates nicely with the entire desktop and with the appearance of the environment. It's very friendly. Overall, I highly recommend using it.